year.
Speaking of a game I played recently that I think really did and does respect my time, and I know this is a PlayStation podcast.
You're not allowed to talk about this game for a year.
We could 1 year. We can talk about this game a little bit.
We'll talk about this game.
Uncharted 3.5. Right?
Yeah. So let's talk about Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Okay.
Now, Rise of the Tomb Raider was kind of an incredible palate cleanser for me after Fallout, because unlike Fallout, I felt like everything I did in it rewarded me in some way. I'm kind of a baby when it comes to stuff like that, you know? So this Rise of the Tomb Raider, it's out next year on PS4. You can play it now on Xbox One or 360 because of stupid exclusivity deal that, like, honestly, between that game coming out the same day as Fallout and being only on one console, they are burying the best kept secret of 2015. It's one of the best games of the year.
I'm just gonna say that sucks.
It sucks. Like, everyone should be playing this game right now, and they can't.
That blows. Like, that's I hope that somebody got to buy a nice new house with whatever.
I know.
Money changed in whatever direction.
Before a Fallout, because of Fallout, I haven't touched this. So
right.
Please tell me why this game's so great.
So it's everything I love about Uncharted, in that sense of adventure and those amazing scripted moments and like the kind of fun gunplay, and it's everything I love about open world games combined.
Wow.
Which is like, now the open world sections, they're called hubs, and there's like 4 or 5 of them, and they're just big enough that you could spend a ton of time in them, or you could just rush through and do the main story stuff. So you'll basically enter this big ravine where there's like, over to the left there's a bear cave, over to the right there's a bunch of wolves. In the middle there's some Greek textbooks that if you pick up, you learn Greek, and then you can read monoliths that tell you where secrets are. Or you can just cut through all of that and go to the main mission. Like, I regularly would spend 8 hours in one hub, just hunting and gathering and finding stuff and upgrading my weapons, and then being like,
down by the
I'm still stuck on the part where you get to go learn ancient Greek. How does that work?
It's very
she
odd.
learns very, very quickly.
Very
Do you remember
quickly.
when you press square to pay your respects?
Well,
this time you pressed X to learn
but
ancient Greek.
What you do is you press X and then you learn 1/5 of Greek. And then you find the next thing, you learn the second
Well, that
fifth
was
of Greek.
I had several semesters, so it came out that kind of the same way. It just took 4 years.
Yeah.
So to
that's why I'm
connect this
wondering.
to this show, playing this a lot made me really go, man, your move, Uncharted 4, because this is going to be a tough one to top.
Wow.
These guys have had this volley going back and forth for a long time now. I think Uncharted is very settled in its ways of, this kind of downhill jam of, I've always described it kind of as a Rube Goldberg machine. You leave and then it just keeps going, and there's action and set pieces, and it's amazing. Their set pieces are unmatched. And I think Tomb Raider has some really good ones. Naughty Dog is kind of above and beyond that. But where Uncharted falters for me is that you lose that kind of openness. Now, we're seeing a little bit of it in Uncharted 4, and that sort of, you get in a car and you can go in different directions.
Yeah, and we even saw in the VGA demo last year that sort of open jungle area that looked like you were able to do things in different ways.
So one of the things I don't like about Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, which I love about Tomb Raider, is that there's no substantial connection to your weaponry in the Uncharted games.
Yeah.
You have a handgun, you fire it off a bunch of rounds, you run out of ammo, you shoot a guy, or you punch a guy, you steal his gun. You're constantly going from weapon to weapon based on what you can find. You're never like, this is my SMG. Whereas in Tomb Raider, you have a bow, you have a pickaxe, you have a grenade launcher and a shotgun and an SMG, and you get those things throughout time. And every upgrade that you do to any of them applies to all of them. So if you have 3 or 4 different bows that all have different techniques and skills, if you apply an upgrade to them to make it feel tighter or more fluid, or you can hold it back longer without your arm shaking, that applies across all bows. And you don't lose your bow. You don't drop it in a river or forget it in the last level and then find a new one. No.
That'd be cool if you could, though.
I mean, there are sections where
the
things...
next person who ruts around by
She's always running around with it kind of draped over her shoulders. And
There are scripted sections where you do lose that, but I feel like there are these hubs in Tomb Raider, and then there are these uncharted tunnels that connect them. So there's these mission areas that go, man, that was an awesome, like, I went through this tomb or this temple run that was insane, and it was like, everything was collapsing, and I was running and jumping and climbing, but then I got to this open hub, and I could either run to the next thing or hunt bobcats.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, I really like that setup. I really like that idea of sort of like, we'll do a little bit of Uncharted, but we'll also give you some Resident Evil 4 and some Metroid Prime and some mini Zelda-esque temples, to kind of throw all those things together. So, and I don't think Uncharted 4 is going to be like that. And that kind of bums me out.
I'm really curious about what Uncharted 4 is like, because
me too.
I mean, I played Last of Us when it came out. I'm playing Uncharted Remastered right now, or Uncharted 3 Remastered. And it's, if they stick with how Uncharted's been up until now, I think obviously it's going to be bigger and louder and prettier. But I'm really curious how it's going to work this generation because we've gotten so used to big, wide, open world. I mean, even Last of Us had a lot of customization. It had like much more, many more systems. Like it's more.
Which I love. It's a lot of the stuff you actually see in the Tomb Raider games too, which is like they are still sort of doing that volley, right?
And
which I really like.
There's that choice of are you going to be stealthy, are you going to be loud and actiony, and Uncharted 2 starts out and they're like, you are doing stealth right now.
Yeah.
And Uncharted 3, there's segments where you can play it stealthily, but it's sort of like, it's not like, oh, you got caught, go hide. It's like, oh, you got caught, now it's an action scene. And
Do you feel like it's a more realistic interaction you're getting with the world in this?
I don't think it's remotely realistic.
Okay,
I think it's the worst word you can associate with Uncharted, but like, I think that...
Squid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Squid.
What?
Squid, that's the worst word I could try to associate with.
Okay.
Not a fan of squids?
Squids are delicious.
It'd be pretty cool if there were some squids in there. Okay, sure.
But I'm not saying Uncharted needs to be an open world game because that's obviously
every game doesn't have to be an open
every
world.
game doesn't have to be. But I appreciate the way Tomb Raider handles open world segments between the areas that are scripted.
It handles it. It's in the way where it's like, hey, here was your cool Indiana Jones set piece. No, go explore for however you want. We'll be over here. Like,
we'll be over here whenever you want
your
to come
next
back.
one. We're right here. Take your time. If you want to come here in 5 minutes, if you want to come here in 5 hours, it doesn't really matter.
Is the transition ever jarring?
No, not really. I mean, because it doesn't have that same. The story doesn't have that same sense of urgency that like Fallout 4 I thought would have. Like I've never been walking around and been like, oh, my baby, like I've been hunting bobcats for 45 minutes, and I'm like, that's right, I have a son, or whatever it is. That's never really happened. And I will say, like, if you played the last game, which most of you should have because it's multi-platform and they remade a HD version of it, some of the weakest parts in that game were the story and that kind of like lost season 3 back half of the plain cast of characters that were your friends.
Mercy, I've killed a deer.
Yeah,
my good friend the cook will make me feel better.
Yeah, a lot of those friends, those idiots that you never cared about, they are not part of the equation here at all. So it's fixed a lot of the weakest sections, and it's focused on what's made it so great, and it's so damn gorgeous, like just a stunning looking game. So yeah, your move, Uncharted. I'm excited for that. I can't wait to play both. I know this is a PlayStation podcast. If you can get your hands on an Xbox One, I don't know if people still rent those or if you can borrow it from a friend. Just do something.
Find the ruins of a Blockbuster and
search
through it.
Just do something and play this game while you can.
Yeah, in a weird sort of tangential story with Crystal Dynamics, there was an interview with their senior designer Michael Brinker, and they mentioned the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver games, which they owned. I mean, those are the games that Amy Hennig cut her chops on before before Uncharted. And when talking about bringing them back, he said, "quote It's a 50-50 chance. We have in-house developers who really want to make that game. It's interesting because people look back at our history and our franchises and see that we have some really iconic IP. So gamers wonder, what are they, or where are they, and what are they going to do? Well, we're always tossing around and taking in the ideas. It's really 50-50. I am super interested in what Crystal Lee is going to do now that they've like re-elevated themselves as a premier AAA developer. Of like, what else do they? Well, obviously they're big enough to have two teams. Like, there's a team that's not working on Tomb Raider.
Gex.
Oh, that gecko!
Gotta get that gecko.
God, that would be really
I just
Gecko
want to
hunting
dive back into
bobcats.
the archive when you read Gex's backstory.
Oh man, I know. What a great moment.
Yeah.
Some people would say that's the most defining podcast moment of 2015.
I'd say it probably was.
Stop
no one
it.
would do that.
Stop that. Stop it. Both
You're
of
lying
you.
to the kids.
Now, see, I don't know what's next from these guys.
So yeah, didn't we see like sort of half-developed footage of a Soul Reaver game?
Yeah, that was a game that didn't. And then there was that Nas. Remember Nosgoth?
I do not.
The rapper?
Not that was Gothic Nas.
Oh, was that like a multiplayer game? Or
Yeah, it was a
like
multiplayer game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like set in the Legacy. That was a real.
That's
Yeah.
Illmatic Redemption,
So,
right?
This is, damn it. This is one of those.
happens every week.
This is one of those franchises. I never really got into it when I was younger, and I thought it looked cool, but it was like you can't play that. It's an M-rated game for
That's for
teens
big
or something.
burly
Yeah.
teenage boys.
But
with
looking
face
back
hair.
on it now, it looks like Darksiders. It looks like a '90s comic book, and I have zero interest. If they bring it back in its form that it's in now, I'm sure a lot of people will get into it. But
The story in that game was awesome.
yeah. Do you think it's one of those things that like Tomb Raider, where it's a lady and maybe some wolves and a dinosaur,
And you can bring it back and make it cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the right direction.
make
you
it
can
relevant, make it
Do we want to
smart.
read this quote? Because 50-50 is that's good odds, right?
Wait, I just read the quote. I read the entire
Yeah,
thing.
we
The
just read
entire
the whole
thing?
quote.
Well, it
No,
depends
That
on-
was literally just...
I thought you were just doing a really good
Depends on
times
what there's a-
throwing your
good
voice.
odds if it's like depends on what the factors. If it's like death or $1 million, you
Yeah.
go for that. At
I think that literally means that they either will or won't do that.
It literally does.
There are two chances they're not gonna.
They're gonna flip that giant coin that the Batman keeps from that man who got his face burnt. He keeps it in his
that's
dungeon.
from the penny pilfer.
He keeps it from the penny
Stop
pincher.
it! Stop it!
Yeah.
Awful.